This is your corner on Fifth. We are on that corner. Good morning to you, Lydia. I trust you are well this morning.
Good morning. Yes, I'm awake now only.
Okay, now
Literally.
only.
Feel
It's the
like the brain.
27th of January. Time is a going. And you guys are
Clocking
moving
on
along. So thank you for
swiftly.
joining me this morning with all the swiftness in your step, because this morning we are going to look at another very important element in assessing growth stages. We are looking at it fractally because our growth stages are going to show in our lives how we speak, how we think, how we emote, how we react, how we train our kids, how we respond to our husbands. All these things are linked because life is a unit, a unified whole, right? And so we are looking at number 12 on our list. It is the maturing level of emotional intelligence. Lydia, can you believe it? Isla's graduated out of the milk stage now, right? She's no longer drinking milk because she's yearning for it. It's more of a luxury now, right? She
Yeah,
still says,
definitely. Yeah.
I want the bottle. But there was a day where you thought she'd never get out of it, right? Moms feel like that. There's some stages that the kids are in that parents just feel, oh, this is going to be an eternity. And then before you know it, it's over and the next one is on you. So, welcome to the real world, daughter. But we are looking at emotional intelligence, what is commonly called EQ, right? And there's a lot of myth surrounding emotions. Now, Lydia, speaking from a female perspective, um, how important are emotions for
Sure.
not just for
Yeah,
males, for females?
yeah. No, it's a goodness. I think it's part of how we communicate. And if we're not careful and we're not aware of what's happening, it causes a lot of strife, and it can cause a lot of strife unnecessarily. So I think it is quite a large part of. I'm not sure if I should say who we are, perhaps just more of how we express ourselves, or how
Right.
I express myself. Maybe I
Well,
should
it's
keep it
part
that
of
way.
what it means to be human, not just woman, but human, right? And there's so much to discuss in this area, but we want to focus more on how do we assess where people are at? How do we assess where we are at? Now, some would say, oh, we're not here to analyze people. But you know, if I don't understand me and how I function, I'm not going to understand how others function. And if I don't make peace with how I function and where I function and how I function, I'm not going to be at peace with others. I'm constantly going to be harassing them. But it's important to be able to assess where the person that you are relating to is at. And someone say, oh, no, 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 but you're not called to do a mental check on that. Then you wonder why we are so out of sync with each other, because we just move around as passive respondents, right? But we want to actively engage with each other and be able to assess. I think it is part of our humanness that has to do with assessing and analyzing and critiquing and examining and so on. The danger for us is we can examine a situation to death, examine ourselves to death, and examine others to death. So, emotions. Now, someone has said, Lydia, listen to this. Emotions are a good slave, never a good master.
Master.
How does that strike you?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that
that was,
true or is that
yeah.
true?
Well, that was what was going around. I think that's what we were, you know, challenged with. Um, and I think the idea was that not to be overridden by emotion, to allow that to dictate maybe a state that you could be in or how you could think. And yet, I almost want to say, how do you separate then the emotion from what's going on? Because your
Well, that's
emotion
a
is revealing
yes,
something, isn't it? So that's
yes,
a reality
yes,
of what's going on.
yes.
So if I'm in denial about the fact that I'm expressing and feeling an internal way of, I'm down, I'm something is upset, I'm disappointed, and if I'm in denial about that, that can cause some other
Mm.
expressions of coping that won't be good. So yeah, I think that even
And
that saying doesn't acknowledge all of the intricacies of what we're talking
no,
about.
no, it doesn't, because all of us are attached emotionally to things and people, and there are levels or degrees of attachment. None of us can say, I am not emotionally attached to anything. Oh my goodness. Just touch my honor and you watch me react. Touch my reputation and watch me react emotively, right? Then people say, oh, yeah, but that's legitimate. Oh, okay. I thought you said you were not emotionally attached to anything. So it's a big area. And we are not to deny our emotions. We are human. And inside of our humanity, there are those expressions of emotion. We express them. It's something we express. It comes from the inside of us. So I guess what we need to talk about is what is inside of us that gives expression externally, emotionally. Maybe that's the way to say it. Because
Can you
emotion
repeat that
is,
again? How do you?
if I can, emotional is an expression of an internal state, an internal way of being. There's a big word for that. It's called interoception, not introspection, interoception. And interoception has to do with your and my internal state. All of us have an internal state, right? We've got feelings, we've got sensitivity. Let's call it sensitivities running in us and through us. Now, let's get real basic here and talk about the five senses. Now, some would immediately remonstrate and say, there are a lot more than five senses. There are about 32 of them. Well, let's not go. It's a lot harder to handle all 32 than just talk about five. So we've got taste, smell, touch, hearing, seeing,
Sight.
uh, feeling, right? We mentioned touch, see, hear, taste,
Taste.
touch, smell, right? So if we say five, that's five. Let's just stick with it. We can talk about orientation being another sense. That more has to do more with movement, where I'm postured, orientation. And you can go into detail. What about the sense of pain? Now you can already see now we're sort of pushing beyond that pentagon of five senses, right? But if you just work with those five, there are five senses. How do you express what you taste? Think of it, Lydia. If I were to give you and you didn't know, and I say, oh, Lydia, here's a sweetie, but it's a sour worm. You don't know what a sour worm is. And you see the sugar on it, you say, oh, this is cool. I need a sugar high. And boy, once you start sucking the sugar off, what do you taste? Sourness. Now, talk to me about how you express that sense of sourness.
I mean, if you don't like it, which I'm not a big fan of, there's a contortion, there's a sense of almost disgust. You're going to see it on the facial expression, you're going to feel it inside your mouth, which creates this reaction. So there's a ripple effect,
There's a whole lot of
of what
responses,
happens.
right? You may spit it out, right? So spitting is one way. A vocal exclamation. And now we won't use any expletives, but a vocal utterance such as yuck, sis, woo. Those are all expressions. I mean, you can see how we can go into a zillion areas with this. So even tasting something that is displeasurable, a sense of taste, or something that is too salty, there's a response. Something that is too sweet, right? Something that is too spicy. Mom's likes chilies, and mom likes to make chili noodles, and I'm not a fan of chili noodles. Oh my goodness, one mouth is too much. I was just looking at some noodles and thought I should make some noodles, and I changed my mind. I'll only do it if there is no food in the house. Um, so our senses are triggered by things that come at us, right?
Yeah.
They are triggered by external stimuli, and they get us to respond in a particular way. And so emotion, the expression of emotion is not, expression is a universal thing, but not the way in which we express it,
Yeah.
right? We all will express it in some way or another, but the way in which it expressed changes from culture to culture. So when black African folk protest, what do they normally do?
They dance and sing.
They toy, right? And it's a way of expressing what they are feeling. In our mixed culture community called so-called colored, when we talk about painful experiences, what do we then do, Lydia? We don't dance, do we?
Make big jokes. Yeah,
We
no.
crack
Laughing.
jokes. And you could have folk crack a joke or two even at a funeral. Now, to other cultures, that's very disrespectful. Wow, that's one of the ways we process our pain. Very interesting. When some folk mourn, oh, they are given to crying in hysterical kinds of ways, right? I was quite fascinated when we just got back home in 1991 into 92, and we ministered in a people group other than our own, which was lily white. And of course, funerals, everybody would wear dark glasses. It's like, are you scared you're going to tan your eyelids? And a very, very culturally driven thing, because it's not a respectable thing to be crying, right? And showing your emotion. So we can spend hours talking into that area, but that's not where we want to spend the maximum of our time. We want to spend it in how do we learn to express our internal state? What would you say are some of the things that get to shape the way we express our sensitivities? And I mean the five senses. What would you
Um,
say?
how do we get to learn to express our five senses? Sure.
Yeah, what do you think inspires that? What do you think grows that?
I think experiences and reactions. I'm using Isla as an example because it's like fresh. So I'm just thinking there's definitely an element of her own sensitivity to things, right? So she's at the moment doesn't like any kind of sauce or things on food. So I think it's a texture and it's a smell thing that she's sensitive to. I don't think she's necessarily learned that from us. So that wasn't, the last time we spoke in terms of locus of authority, internal versus external. This one, what isn't external, I don't think. I think there's something internal to her as a starting that then she responds to and expresses when she gets an external stimulus coming in.
In a certain
You
way.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of learning, then over time, the more she is exposed to different, let's just keep the taste in terms of food. Now she starts to put this on this spectrum of, oh, okay, this is a bit more bland. I can handle this one. No, this one's too spicy. I'm not going to go there anymore. You know, and so for itself, it's like, I think that's the learning part in terms of diversity, in terms of difference of exposure, of
And
experience.
if you were to say, no, you're going to eat that, no matter what,
Yeah,
or else you're going to go hungry. It will shape her response as well, right? In
definitely. I
the
mean, there's
early
been a big thing now
stages.
of, yeah, of being careful of some of that because it can cause food avoidance and aversions, which can
Mm.
unnecessarily then ripple effect into an unhealthy relationship with food. So, yeah,
Right,
it
right. And
definitely,
even
yeah.
allergies as well,
Oh,
right?
I mean, that now becomes a whole nother
Another
extra part to it. Yeah, that you have
and
to
you
now
see
consider. Yeah.
how fundamental this is because it just goes into every facet of life. Um,
Mm.
like we grew up in a home where we were told, "Now don't cry. You are naughty and you got a hiding. So what are you crying for?" Right? But by then they've already
Mm.
given you something to cry about. They're not going to do something to get you to cry. It's not what
Yeah.
are you crying about. It's like, well, now don't cry because you were naughty. Oh, don't
Mm.
cry. So watch how they attach the emotion to a particular response, and they are learning what in this situation or this culture is what is acceptable and what is not. Yeah.
Mm.
And we don't realize how deeply our culture shapes who we are and how we think and how we do things. I mean, it is fascinating until it gets pointed out to us. And emotional immaturity can show very quickly, right? Because you watch how people handle. If my kid throws a tantrum in a store, well, I've got an interesting way of curing her, but I'm going to just have to bide my time here, take my time, get out of that store if I can, get to a very quiet, private place and discipline that child and do what it takes that is apropos, that fits the behavior or the misbehavior, right? And then once you settle down, then I go back into the shop. I remember when used to discipline Levi because Levi just didn't listen. You'd say no, Levi would say yes. You say don't, Levi says do. And whenever I discipline, whenever it came to a spank, I said, I'm going to give you 2 spanks. Oh, Levi would cry more bitterly about the spanks. No, Dad, not two. Dad, and he would try and bargain that just one spank is okay, right? It just has to be one. Instead of the focus is here now, not on the spank. The focus on, first of all, on the misdemeanor and why, and so on and so on and so on. And boy, he would beg me, no, Dad, not two, just one, right? Um, all I'm illustrating here is our emotional outbursts are framed by the situation we're in most often. And until we have greater awareness, a heightened awareness of emotional, our EQ, our emotional intelligence, we just gonna go on our merry way. And then you
I
wonder
just want
why.
to,
Sure.
yeah. No, no, sorry. I just wanted to add in there because what's capturing me here, and there's a few things. Being a mom now of a 2-year-old who's soon to be 3-year-old, when you say a heightened awareness, if you're not, because I'm also aware of what I'm saying, the stop crying, don't cry. I've written here, they're expressing themselves in some way. There's something happening that is causing from an internal state to this external stimulus and then that roller coasters. So there's a whole bunch of things going on. Now we're talking about emotional intelligence. As a parent, if I don't become more learned and become in this heightened awareness of emotional state and what's going on of my own state, I quickly lose it and I lose touch with what's going on in front of me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
even what we're saying here, it's so complex that even as a mom, I'm saying if I can see that very easily. If I'm tired, and if I'm stressed, or it becomes even more challenging. It compounds the situation where if my toddler isn't able to, because she's not in a state right now to calm herself down, right? Things go from zero to hero very quickly. And if
Mm.
I'm not aware of where I am already, then that clashes and it causes, I mean, even a greater explosion at times, or you can get more riled up unnecessarily because now. So, I mean, this, you talk about what a big area this is. Um, you know?
It is huge. It is huge. And I think all one can do in a short talk like this is just raise awareness, become a student of your own responses so that you can become a student of your toddler's responses. And you're right, if you're not a student of your own responses, if I am highly stressed and I go into berserk mode, guess what? That's exactly where that child lands. Because that child is imitating what she sees. She can feel what's going on, right? And she's testing the boundaries all the time, all the time. And so often we tell them not to do things that we do all the time. And we tell them don't. And they kind of figure out, yeah, but how can you say that? They don't articulate it the same way we do.
Yeah.
What I'm doing now, uh, they just maybe have violent outbursts because they don't know any other way, but they can be trained according to another way. And that's why when you see a 40-year-old have these emotional or constant emotional outbursts, it makes you very concerned. It's like, what's happening here? But you see, that's why relationships give the game away, don't they? The more intense the relationship, the more I give the game away because my guard goes down. Because number one, I feel safe, right? But at the same time, there's stuff that comes into the field of relationality that need to be dealt with, right? I'm constantly sulking, right? Um, I'm constantly grousing and grumbling or constantly complaining. Just imagine what that child picks up. And so, how do I put a level of maturity on a particular response, though? That would be an interesting discussion. How do I peg
Yeah.
levels? Now, that is very, very interesting.
Well, I
And
think
of
you
course,
can though. Yeah. Yeah. Based on, I mean, scenarios quickly. Well, let's just make it a formal scenario. If you're in a working space that requires a degree of decorum when something is happening, you very quickly can see levels of maturity based on emotional inverted commas outbursts from individuals when there's a crisis that hits. How do you respond? You know, um, how do you handle people around you? How do you handle the workspace? How do you handle the load? And then you can
well,
see,
isn't that
yeah,
interesting? Because it also is dependent on my maturity level will get tested emotionally if I can switch from anger to calm or from anger to understanding, right? Versus constantly being angry because then I won't be listening, right? The anger is so overwhelming and so explosive that now I don't listen. And I think someone who is showing some emotional maturity will be able to flex with the situation, right? I'm quite angry now, but I need to temper my anger because now is not the time for a blowout. Oh, when we get to the car, that's when I'm going to blow. Or when we get home, that's when I'm going to blow. And that's why
yeah,
the biblical injunction is don't be angry and do not sin. Be angry yet do not sin. Well, how do you pull that one off? Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And don't give the enemy, the devil, this Luciferian influencer in my life or around me, because I'm going to give him a foothold if I do that. Because when I'm emotionally off balance, I'm not thinking straight. And I'll be susceptible to things and to doing things that I wouldn't do if I were calm. And so the fact that there's a time limit that can be placed on anger, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Ever gone to bed angry with your partner? Don't confess now, lads. Don't confess. It's not time. Ever been angry with your wife or your husband and you went to bed angry? And then you wonder why can't I sleep? You know, interesting, eh? Very interesting, very convicting stuff. We expect little bodies to know how to respond and respond well, but we don't as bigger bodies respond well. And so maturing at an emotional level is really challenging. And relationships have a way of catching me out on this. Because you see, people who don't know me aren't going to be cognizant of what's going to trigger me. But those who know me, they say, oh, don't say that. Not around Lydia. If you're going to say that, Lydia's going to blow. So, okay. So now we balance out our behavior. But for somebody who don't know, that's why relationships have a way of catching you out. And that's why a lot of people don't like intimate relationships. And some married couples wonder why their relationships just crash. Because they aren't in touch. They're not even remotely aware of what's going on in the other person, still less inside of themselves. How I have grown up, the home I grew up in has to a large extent tempered my EQ. Now, I'm not suggesting at all that you cannot change your emotive responses. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying we put far too light a load on how deeply we get influenced by our surroundings, our family, our friends, our job, our husbands, and so on. So can you see how it's very convicting stuff, And yet we're not called to be fruit inspectors, but we need to be discerning. That's what discernment has to do with. Where's this person coming from? Why this response? Okay, now I don't want to analyze the thing to death. Now this person needs help. I've got a bullet wound, an emotional bullet wound. I may need to slap on an emotional Band-Aid for now, for the short term. But we're going to have to remove that Band-Aid and do deeper surgery down the road if this relationship is to go anywhere. Comments, questions, Lids?
No, I think especially in relationships, I agree with you. I don't think we have taken the time, enough time to really, because this brings a relationship to a whole different level when you really take time out to say who you are, that you're a product of. To a large extent, we are products of, and fill in those spaces. And so if you really want to understand somebody better, and that's part of maturing, isn't it? Because how I respond to you requires me learning more also.
But not sort of in a suicidal way and say, well, tough shot, you stuck with me and I'm not going
to. No. Yeah. I think it's just, that's why I think maturing is making sure that you understand that the information that I have to make an informed decision so that I can move forward, right? For growth and for health. I mean, that's part of maturing and growing. So why I'm saying all of that is just amazing for me. What's being highlighted here is just to understand what's going on. Why are you responding this way and I'm not responding that way? Okay, wait a minute. Now remember, we're products from different things. And like you're saying, that doesn't mean that stops and ends there. It creates an understanding, and now where to from here? Are you aware of that? I'm aware of that. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And I think
the way forward. The way forward. And to concentrate more on being something than on doing something first. I am a human being. I am sensing this and I'm feeling this, right? Or as I watch and relate to that person, this is what I am sensing. I wonder where they are at. Then to ask the right kinds of questions that would help that person see where they are at. I think far too often we shut the whole thing down, We either enable them in their anger and in their hostility. Soos ons sê in Afrikaans, ons versterk mekaar in ons kwaad. Ek versterk jou in jou kwaad. So I actually make you more angry because of how I handle. But being discerning has to do with being able to read a situation. And how can you read others if you can't even read you? How can I, if I can't read myself? Why am I responding like this? I'm amused when the psalmist says, why are you so downcast, O my soul? He speaks to himself in a soliloquy. 3 or 4 times in one of the Psalms. Can't remember which one now. But why are you so disturbed within me? He's talking to himself. Now, Terry, why are you so upset? Why are you feeling so alienated? And then to go at that and say, oh, here's why. Because I've been spoiled rotten. And now I can't have it because I get it on demand. And now I throw my toys out of the cot. So this is a wonderful discussion. But you can see we haven't even taken just a single angle. We've gone into so many sort of little off-roads on emotional intelligence, and our emotionality as human beings. And maybe it's an area that we're too scared to talk about because we know so little about it. We just know that you show how you feel and you say how you feel.
Yeah.
And I'm learning very often, prepare the person for what is going to be said and prepare yourself for what is going to be said. So I would joke, I said, have you buckled up? I said, well, in this seat, you've got 2 buckles, one that comes from the right shoulder over to the left side and one from the left shoulder over to the right side. So buckle up, because what I'm going to say to you, I think is not going to sit well with you. So are you ready? No, 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 no. I'm not ready now. Oh, then you stop. Okay, right, Lydia, let's go. Say it. Boom. And it hits me between the eyes. And so I've done that quite often. I'm thinking of one situation that I need to go and confront lovingly, but it's going to require almost preparing the way, because there is a relationship, but boy, I don't know which way it will blow. Now that's rough, isn't it? That's rough. Lydia, as we try and tie up some of the loose ends here, we've got so many loose ends. What would your singular thing be that you would say from an emotional standpoint in terms of how we are to relate to people and our awareness level of their internal states? Or if you want to talk about emotional states, what would you highlight?
I think it's, what is coming to me is if I'm responding or reacting to somebody else's emotional state or emotional expression, then my first response needs to be checking, why am I doing that for myself? Not looking at that person as a first point. And I think that comes to being first. I think it's important to check yourself first. Where am I
Yeah,
at? What's going on? In order
checking
to
my own,
then respond, to something.
my own index. Take a temperature check of my own level, whether it's anger or consternation or wonder or awe or all of the above. Okay, I see the line just dropped there, but maybe
Just
that's a
dropped,
good,
yeah.
maybe that's a good time just to conclude, Lids. But you
Yeah.
can see a lot more needs to be done and worked through on this one. And I really think to go at it from, because there's a lot of psychosocial responses here that need to be talked about, things that we just avoid because it gets too personal, as we say. So let's, as we close out our time, I want to thank you for carving out time just to talk about more sensitive subjects. And in the next episode, we're going to look at moralistic language and moralistic thinking. And that's a very convicting one, but we're going to talk into it. We're not going to solve all of what is tied to it, but let's leave that for the next episode. Lydia, thank you very much for your time, and goodbye for now.
Sure. Sure. Thanks. Have a good one.
You're welcome.